The year is 1999, and it's a great time to be a kid. You can watch any movie or play any game your heart desires, as long as someone's willing to drive you to the nearest Blockbuster. You've got access to this crazy new thing called the internet, as long as someone in your house owns a personal computer and is paying for dial-up internet. And the toy industry is booming at this point. Furbies and Polly Pockets are just flying off shelves, and licensed toys are seeing a huge rise in sales. IPs like Power Rangers, Pokemon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you can name it, it was probably a toy, and it was probably da bomb. Or whatever kids were saying back then, I'm not entirely sure. I was born in the 90s. I didn't grow up in the 90s, so... Anyway, you know what's more exciting than toys, though? Business. Yeah, no, I said business. And there's a few things brewing at this time in the business world that were about to come together to form an absolute powerhouse in the toy industry. I know I said the toy industry was booming at this point, but during this time, the LEGO Group was really struggling financially, which might surprise you like it surprised me, because I just kind of assumed that LEGO was always popular. Essentially, in an effort to revitalize the brand, LEGO hired a bunch of these fresh-faced toy design graduates from all over Europe. This was a bit of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, they were really good at designing toys that look cool and were fun to play with, but on the other, they weren't really accustomed to designing toys that had to be built and had to be put together to form something, you know, like the whole core concept behind LEGO sets. Long story short, this new design team had all these ideas that were really different and exciting for LEGO, but it ended up causing their production to balloon out of control, like going from manufacturing over 6,000 unique parts to over 12,000, which was just a huge logistical nightmare and was really expensive to upkeep. LEGO had also been trying to diversify their brand in the late 90s, kind of just by trying different things. This was part of the reason they were having financial issues, but I'll get back to that in a second. They saw this trend of licensed toys selling really well, but had never really dipped their toes into that market, so in the spirit of trying new things, LEGO was on the hunt for the perfect property to license. They were looking for an IP that would help them maintain relevance in the toy market, but also kind of save their business, which, you know, there's kind of a lot riding on that choice. At the same time, you have Lucasfilm, which is about to release the Star Wars prequel trilogy. With The Phantom Menace coming out this year and a marketing campaign on the way, Lucasfilm was looking for companies to license their toy rights out to. You can probably see where I'm going with this. It took around 6 weeks of negotiating, give or take, but LEGO and Lucasfilm eventually shook hands, which led to the first licensed LEGO theme, LEGO Star Wars. This was a very smart move, because LEGO Star Wars is LEGO's most profitable theme by far, and likely one of the most profitable toy licensing deals of all time. But going back to that topic of diversification for a second, LEGO had hopped on and really rode the trend of video games, beginning with 1997's LEGO Island for PC. Actually, that's not entirely true. There was a LEGO game released in 1995 called LEGO Fun to Build for the Sega Pico, which was like a children's educational device, but their bread and butter early on was computer games, which they stuck with till around 2003. That was when LEGO kind of realized that they were a sinking ship. A brand new CEO swooped in, Jürgen Vignudstorp, whose name I hope I'm saying right, but if I didn't, the Danes can correct me, feel free, I don't mind. And Nudstorp shifted the company's focus to find ways to save money on the production side of things, while also making money on the sales side of things. They essentially realized that they were blowing way too much money on their manufacturing and storing all these unique parts for their sets, and on their other ventures like their gaming division. I mean, they released like 20 titles from 1997 to 2003 alone, which is a lot of games to make in such a short amount of time. But in 2003, the decision was made to just shut all that down and again focus on restructuring the company, downsizing, and getting back up on their feet. Some of the programmers actually, who were part of LEGO's game team, ended up moving to a company called Traveler's Tales, which were known for games like Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic R, alongside a few random licensed Disney titles. But LEGO hit up their old pals at Traveler's Tales a couple years later with a rather risky idea for a brand new video game. And in 2005, LEGO Star Wars, the video game, was released to massive success. This was a really huge shift in direction for LEGO and really laid the groundwork for every LEGO game project going forward. The floodgates were open, and LEGO was raking in licenses like crazy with Star Wars, Mickey Mouse, Bob the Builder, Harry Potter, Spider-Man, Dora the Explorer, which I actually had no idea that one was a thing. I didn't know that LEGO Dora existed. So now you know also with me that LEGO Dora exists. So that's cool. Anyway, Batman, Avatar. No, not that one. The other one. Yeah, there we go. SpongeBob, Speed Racer, and hold on. I'm sorry. That was so weird. I feel like I heard something just now. Like a whip crack? An upbeat 1930s jazz music that could fit into an action adventure film set during that time period. It can't be. In 2008 welcomed the release of the LEGO Indiana Jones theme, the second Lucasfilm property LEGO got the license to. Absolute classic sets like Temple Escape, The Lost Tomb, and Fighter Plane Chase were on shelves all across the globe, and fans couldn't get enough. At least that's how it felt as a kid. This is where I come in, where I enter the equation, the story, if you will. 2008 and on was my era of LEGO. Bionicles, Exoforce, Agents, Power Miners, Atlantis. I could go on and on about all the awesome LEGO themes at the time. The point being, I loved LEGO. I wanted LEGO for my birthday. I wanted LEGO for Christmas. And when there wasn't a gift-giving opportunity coming up, I was scrounging up every dollar and dime I could get my hands on and spending it all on LEGO. But not just any LEGO. LEGO Indiana Jones, baby. See, I watched the Indiana Jones movies before I watched the Star Wars movies. So while I did own and like some of the LEGO Star Wars sets, I thought they were pretty neat, I cared way more for LEGO Indiana Jones at the time. Playing with toys, playing outside with my siblings, and watching movies made up the majority of my entertainment at the time, so every chance I got to buy and build a new LEGO set, I would, obviously. Also, a quick side note, my parents' philosophy surrounding digital media like video games was the less screens, the better. So I didn't really grow up playing on video game consoles. But when I did get to play games, they were on the family computer, with sites like Millsberry, Pop Tropica, Club Penguin, and most importantly, Lego.com, baby. Gotta stay true to the roots, you know what I'm saying? Hey. All of this culminated into me receiving 2009's PC release of LEGO Indiana Jones 2: The Adventure Continues. Either that Christmas or my following birthday, I honestly don't remember which one, but the point is, my parents gave me a video game as a gift, which was huge for me at the time. We owned a few computer games, but mostly like educational stuff or older LEGO games, like the 90s creator stuff, which was kinda rough. They did not age particularly well. But not Indy 2. Oh no, it was so much different than anything I'd ever played before, and certainly any LEGO game I'd ever played before. For starters, there was local co-op, which had always been a feature in LEGO games, but this time it was split-screen co-op, which means that the two players were no longer bound together by fate with one camera. If you wanted to move away from the other person, you could, which was a pretty big deal at the time. Each movie in the game had this sprawling and dynamic hub world, meaning that once one level was over, you had the choice of continuing directly with the story, playing one of the bonus levels, unlocking a variety of characters and vehicles, uncovering hidden secrets like the golden chests and the various colored bricks, and obviously the best part in any LEGO game, breaking every single brick-built object in sight to rack up those sweet, sweet studs, baby. One thing that I always thought was pretty fun in these hub worlds as a kid was how you always needed to overcome some kind of obstacle or challenge in order to get to the next story-related level. Like here in Raiders of the Lost Ark, you need Sala, a character who has a shovel, to shovel the sand away from the statue, which rolls down the hill, breaking open the way to the Well of Souls. Or later, how you need to dismount two soldiers from their horses, hop on those horses, which can apparently jump across chasms, that's just a thing horses can do, I guess, and stand on the pressure plates, which open the gate to the driving segment. It's little things like that which I really enjoyed as a kid because it gave me this really satisfying feeling of progression, that my actions in the story levels actually make a difference. they allow you to do more in the overworld and move on to the next story level. Given this more open nature of the hub world, you'll see that closed up chasm before unlocking a shovel-wielding character, but not know how to open it up, nor really what lies beneath it. Or you might see that out-of-commission bridge, but can't find a way across, nor know what lies beyond it. Similar to how, during your exploring, you might find rooms in Metroid Zero Mission that are too hot to be in for extended periods of time, but eventually you find the Varia suit in Brinstar, which allows you to go back into those caverns and rooms, furthering the story. While it's obviously not an exact comparison, it's not one-to-one, the structures of those two games couldn't be more different. I really enjoyed that feeling playing Indy 2 as a kid. Also, who can forget the absolute best feature in every LEGO game? Being able to tie up your friends, so they can't get away. So they can never escape. Stuck forever. Bound. By your hand. You can just get out? You can just get out of the ropes? Well, I played the heck out of that game. It might have taken me, like a year or so to complete, just because I wanted to find everything I could in each world before I went on to the next one. I was essentially 100% of the game, which I honestly don't think I've ever really done to any other game since then. The seemingly vast amount of content in LEGO Indiana Jones 2, coupled with the fact that I was only allowed, maybe a half hour of designated computer time as a kid, all topped nicely with the cherry of Indy 2 being pretty much the only cool new game I owned at the time, culminates into this super nostalgic experience and was one of the building blocks for my love and passion for the art of gaming today. Except, everybody hates it. Everybody hates LEGO Indiana Jones 2, The Adventure Continues. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but in general, audiences seem less receptive to this brand new LEGO game. But, maybe that was because just a year and a half earlier, this game came out. Yep, that's right. In June of 2008, not even a year and a half prior, LEGO released LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures to moderate success, which is weird, right? Like, why would LEGO release essentially the same game within just shy of a year and a half? Like, what happened during the development of the first game that made them want to go back and make a second one immediately after? Oh no. Yeah, we gotta talk about that. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was released in May of 2008, and how do I say this? Critically, it received mixed reviews, but audiences just thought it sucked. I mean, I don't really want to make this a review of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but the general consensus at the time was that the previous 3 Indiana Jones films were much better. The sequel felt kind of hollow. People criticized this film's over-reliance on CGI versus the past movies utilizing these incredible practical effects, combined with the mediocre storyline that involved sci-fi elements like aliens. It was trying to do too much and strayed away from the action-adventure period piece elements that made the previous films stand out and remain iconic to this day. One of the founders of Traveler's Tales, John Burton, was the director on both LEGO Indy 1 and LEGO Indy 2. And he has a website as well as a YouTube channel called Game Hut, where he discusses a lot of behind the scenes of some of the games that he and the team has developed. One of the videos being about concepts for LEGO games that never were released or were changed pretty significantly. And in that video, he says this about the development of LEGO Indy 1.
The second test we did was this one of Indiana Jones. This made much more sense as we were already working with Lucasfilm on Star Wars and pretty much everyone was keen, but it wasn't given the green light as LEGO weren't making any Indiana Jones LEGO sets at the time. However, with the announcement of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, all of that changed, and we rapidly rearranged our development slate to make room for a LEGO Indiana Jones game. We delayed LEGO Batman to free up development resources and created the LEGO Indie game in just 7 months in order to release the same time as the new movie.
So, LEGO Indy 1 and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull were developed simultaneously, which raises a couple of questions. and I can't really find any concrete sources to back these claims up, so take what I'm about to say with a big grain of salt. That being said, LEGO Indy 1 only covered films 1 through 3, so not the newly released 4th film. Adding a 4th film portion into the mix would be too much work and would likely cause the project to get delayed, which is kind of a wild concept to think about. You know, developers actually wanting to release a complete project on the intended release date, and the studios not forcing them to cram in a ton of work last minute just to appease shareholders and deliver a half-baked, unfinished glitch fest that pisses everybody off who was looking forward to playing it and bought it day one. Yeah, I don't actually think that's ever happened. Nothing really comes to mind. It's also possible that Lucasfilm wasn't really willing to give enough information to the team about the upcoming film due to, like NDAs and leak concerns and all that. Because I know that when LEGO sets come out from a movie or show, like the Marvel and Star Wars stuff, the studios do give them concept art and a really vague description of the scene or the vehicle, so when the sets actually do release, they might not be 100% accurate to the actual scene in the movie or show. So, all of that being said, the best guess I can make as to why Traveler's Tales and LEGO went ahead to develop a sequel was simply to include this brand new film into the mix, making the game more complete, so to speak. Releasing Indy 1 alongside Crystal Skull might have led some consumers to believe that the game covered the contents of the movie, but that wasn't the case with Indy 1. Who knows, maybe there were even a few things that the dev team wanted to put into the game but didn't really have time for, so they immediately started working on the sequel. Kind of like how Tears of the Kingdom is essentially just Breath of the Wild, but more fleshed out. Again, I don't know 100%, these are just my theories. I love LEGO Indiana Jones 2. It's probably my favorite childhood game, hence the whole concept of the video, and easily the game I spent the most time in as a kid. But, in general, people tend to prefer the previous game over the second one. This is for a number of reasons. The first that a lot of people will point their finger to and say, hey, this was in the old one, but not the new one, is free play. Free play was a feature in the previous LEGO games like the 2 Star Wars ones, Batman and Indy 1, where you could take characters you've unlocked in any of the movies or the levels or whatever, and you could bring them into previous levels. So while you're going through one level, you might see something and you're like, oh, well, I don't have a character that can do that yet, which prompts you to be like, oh, well, once I get a character that can do that in the future, I can go back to this level and replay it to get like the red bricks or the mini kits or what have you. It adds a decent replayability factor to the game and the levels, and allows for some fun experimentation and creativity after you've gone through the story. Indy 2 doesn't have free play. In fact, any character you unlock in a specific level, they can't actually be played in the other movies, just their own. Instead of free play levels, you can actually go back and play some of the story levels, but now they're these nighttime or alternate versions of the level with a completely different set of challenges to complete. There's also a lot of these bonus golden chest levels made in the level creator, which are almost always timed, and you can replay them to beat your previous time if you're the speedrunning sort. The only way to play the story levels again is if you played both the story and the alternate version of that level. Which is fine, but as a kid I didn't really enjoy the alternate levels to the same degree I did the story version. Something about them, I don't know, just always felt kind of bland. Plus, the levels are already short, and these alternate versions are just shorter and don't add a ton to the experience. Another reason why some people prefer the previous game over the sequel is Indy 2 is just way less accurate to the movies. Now, granted, LEGO games aren't ever 100% accurate to the films they're based off of, but the precedent that was set with the previous LEGO games was that when you buy a LEGO game based off of a movie, you're going to play a LEGO-ified version of that movie. Obviously with the classic family-friendly LEGO humor thrown in, which replaces parts that would be less savory for younger audiences. In Indy 1, you essentially play through the majority of the movie, save for a few cutscenes that replace the gameplay. But most of the story of the film is experienced by the player. Not much is really skipped or cut out. However, Indy 2 doesn't work like that. In fact, there's a lot of stuff missing, especially in the 3 original film portions that don't even show up as cutscenes. Like in Raiders, Indy 1 starts with the beginning of the film, having you explore the jungles of vague South America somewhere for the Temple of the Golden Idol, and you play through / watch pretty much the entire beginning of the film. But that exact same movie in Indy 2 starts you off after all that takes place, like a good 20 minutes into the movie. Now, this drastic of a difference isn't the case throughout the whole game, but I just kind of wanted to use that as an example. On top of that, in what I can only assume is a move to just make things different than the previous game, each end sequence, like each boss fight in every single movie in Indy 2, they have you like battling these giant kaiju monsters. Like, Do you remember them taking down a giant lava monster at the end of Temple of Doom? Or a giant electricity ghost skeleton thing in Raiders of the Lost Ark? Because I don't remember that at all. The story levels of Indy 2 take a much less grounded and accurate approach than the story levels in Indy 1, solely for the sake of making it different and having them stand out from its predecessor. Oh, but speaking of the story levels, Indy 1 and 2 approach the overall structure of the entire game much differently. The difference in design philosophy is actually really interesting because there's a lot of choices that they made in Indy 2 that really kind of explain why the two games feel so different from a structural point of view. With Indy 1, it feels like you're just playing the movies, right? Like you're playing through the events of the movie from start to finish. But in Indy 2, you're just kind of placed into different scenes and set pieces of the movies and then pulled back out. So you're less involved, I guess, in the actual story of the films. In Indy 1, there's a lot of movement in each level, like you're always going forward somewhere, which not only expands the size and the time spent in each level, but it also gives the player this constant sense of progression. Like you're never in the same place for too long before moving on to the next place, with some simple challenges in between those 2 points, but it's always moving you forward to the next story level. The only levels in this game are story levels. Indy 1 is much more focused on giving the player an experience that's in line with the films, but I feel like the devs on Indy 2 wanted you to feel like you're playing in a playground or playing with a set, like you're playing with your own Legos just on the computer. This is why most of the levels in Indy 2 are these open spaces without much verticality or linearity. You're kind of just contained to one area, big or small. Same with the quote-unquote open hub worlds. You have this big area to explore in between the levels, you know, because it's like the adventures you'd have if you were playing on a playground or playing with your own Legos sprawled out on the floor. Indy 2 is a lot less focused on giving you a strictly movie experience and more of a, hey, have fun in this Indiana Jones world full of Indiana Jones characters in Indiana Jones places. There's even a level editor, which was one of the big selling features of the game I somehow forgot to mention until now. Actually, that's not entirely true. I didn't forget. I just never really cared for it much as a kid, to be honest. I've never been a creative in video games kind of guy. That's not really my strong suit. I mean, even the selection screen at the beginning of the game has you opening these Lego set-like boxes. It's so obvious, this playground set experience that the devs were crafting for this game, but one that I never really thought of until recently. Indy 2 seems like it was a challenging game to develop. Like, think about it, they had to somehow make the structure and the levels different enough from the previous game, but not too different so they alienated their audience, which was massive at this point. They had to take a lot of creative liberties with Indy 2 just for the sole sake of making it different than Indy 1. Once I realized that, a lot of the design decisions and people's complaints about the game started to make sense. Like, I started to understand why the game wasn't as well received as the previous entry. I had never played Lego Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures. Never played it. I'd seen friends playing it, but I'd never played it myself. I'm obviously super nostalgic for Indy 2, to the point where I've actually bought the games multiple times on different platforms just so I could have access to it anywhere. But because I've never played the original, I never understood the criticism, because I didn't have anything to compare it to, aside from like Lego Star Wars, but that's Star Wars, so it's not really exactly the same thing, you know? I always kind of wondered how much different Lego Indy 2 could be from its predecessor, but I never really bothered to look into it. That was until I bought myself a Steam Deck. Yeah, I am flexing my Steam Deck ownership a little bit, but it's such a cool device, man. Like, that thing can do anything. It's probably one of my favorite gaming purchases recently. It's so cool. Bit of a sidetrack, sorry, but I didn't have a big Steam library when I first got the thing, so 2 games I bought pretty much immediately for it were Lego Indiana Jones 1 and 2. To be honest, I was always kind of scared of playing Indy 1 for some reason. Like, it sounds kind of silly, but I had so much love for the sequel and had invested so much time into it, I didn't really want to be wrong. Like, I didn't want to realize that this game that I loved so much and was such a huge part of my childhood was actually not that good in comparison. But, you know, I set aside those thoughts in favor of having fun, and I booted up Lego Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures. And I played it. I played it a lot. I beat it. It might have been one of the first games I ever beat on the Steam Deck, I'm not entirely sure, but it was definitely one of the first ones. And I think it's better. I agree with everyone. I had a ton of fun playing Lego Indy 1, and I get it. I understand why a lot of people see Lego Indy 2 as the inferior game. Now, I still don't think Indy 2 is bad. I just want to get that out of the way. I'm not here to say that Indy 2 is trash and Indy 1 is the GOAT of LEGO games or something. That's not really what I'm here to do. But it all just makes sense now. I was really putting off writing this portion of the video for a while because I didn't really know why I was enjoying Indy 1 more. Like, after all, I still like Indy 2, so I feel kind of conflicted, right? Like, shouldn't nostalgia be winning out? Shouldn't I be enjoying something because not only does it bring back fond memories from my childhood, but it's also something that's comfortable to me? Something I know inside and out like the back of my hand? Well, no. Because over time, I've realized what I like in video games and what I don't. You know, what gets me excited and what makes me go, ugh, really? This again? And what I think I've boiled it down to is straightforwardness, or simplicity, but I prefer straightforwardness. Dorfromantik, despite the odd name, at least in English, is a game where you place hexagonal tiles on a grid, connecting similar edges together in order to build a sprawling town. Tiles will have fields, grass, homes, forest, water, railroads, and more on them, and the more connections you make, like home to home or forest to forest, etc., the more points you get, and the more tiles you're given to place down. If you run out of good spots to place your tiles, then you run out of tiles, which ends the game. There's obviously a little bit more to it than that, but it's pretty straightforward. You build a town by placing tiles. And I love that game. It's awesome. It's really chill, and it's just enough puzzle and creativity for me to have to think about it, but not too much where I have to devote my entire brain to it. That's pretty much it. The Beginner's Guide is a walking simulator made by the same team behind the Stanley Parable, and it's one of my favorite game experiences of all time, like bar none. Walking simulators by nature are straightforward, as you're essentially just walking through a story. But in this game, the way that the devs are able to tie in the narrated story to what you're actually exploring in-game, topped off with some really interesting ideas about creativity, self-expression, and expectation, it all comes together in this incredibly surreal experience that I honestly think about all the time. Again, I love this game, and it's really straightforward. You walk around and you listen to the narrator. That's pretty much it. LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures is a game where you play through almost all the events of the first 3 Indiana Jones films, but in LEGO form. You go from level to level, solving simple puzzles, dismembering bad guys, and obviously destroying the environment for money. It's a pretty straightforward game. You're experiencing a LEGOified version of the movies. That's pretty much it. You can probably see where I'm going with this. As an adult, I've realized that I enjoy these simplistic, more straightforward games. Obviously, I occasionally get sucked into an open world game like Tears of the Kingdom, Elden Ring, or Cyberpunk. But the games that I want to play to relax and to chill out, when I have the time, which feels like never anymore, are these straightforward games. And I really appreciate the straightforward, more story-focused approach that Traveler's Tales, LucasArts, and LEGO took to LEGO Indy 1. I actually started to play LEGO Indy 2 right after I beat Indy 1, and I don't know, man, something about it just wasn't the same. Like, I wasn't that into it. I don't know, maybe part of it was the thought of playing through 3/4 of the same base material all over again was kind of daunting to me. But I think the other part was because I just remembered that the game didn't have that straightforward vibe that I like now. Okay, it's not like LEGO Indy 2 isn't straightforward, it's just much less so than the previous game, mainly due to the whole design philosophy behind it. If I had the choice to play one of the 2 games right now, I'd probably choose the first one. It's a more focused, more straightforward game. It's not trying to be something else, it's not trying to be different for the sake of being different. It tries and succeeds on being a fun LEGO version of the 3 original Indiana Jones films. And that is why everyone hates my favorite childhood game. What, were you expecting me to say like, me too? Or I also think it sucks, I agree with them? Or something? Because I don't. I don't think LEGO Indiana Jones 2 is a bad game. It, definitely suffers from being released so quickly after its predecessor, but it's still a fun game. And throughout my lifetime, I've had a lot of enjoyment come from playing that game. Sure, yeah, having played both as an adult, I do like the first game more, and the second one isn't really as good as I remember it being as a kid when I compared the two, but I think they're still both really solid games. There's a lot of fun and laughs and entertainment to get out of each one. I'd just prefer to play the original adventures more now. Because I love movies, Legos, and video games, and the second game is such a huge part of my childhood, having access to that first game now is almost like my world expanding, right? Like now I have double the amount of LEGO Indiana Jones games to play and experience, which I see as really cool and really fun, you know? I know that I said I was a bit hesitant to play the first game a little bit ago, but I'm glad that I did. It kind of pushed me to think more critically about what I enjoy in games and why I enjoy that. This video has been something I've had in my head for a long time now, and to be honest, it's really a labor of love. I just somehow never got around to making it until now. And I just hope that you can understand where my head's at and where I'm coming from. Because that's my goal with this, is to kind of give you an insight into how I view this game, how important it is to me, and how my mindset has changed over the years when it comes to video games. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sticking it through with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Farewell, and salutations.